3 weeks left in the fantasy regular season, and it's crunch time. Welcome back to the EDFF Week 12 preview show. Thanks for joining us. We're going to look at the Sunday games and Monday to help you make sense of what to expect this weekend and how to set up your lineups accordingly. All right, let's take a look at the injury reports from Friday and today. Currently out, Devonta Smith, Purdy, Allen's going to start for San Francisco, Reynolds, Nick Bosa's out, Ferguson out, Oliver, Pacheco needs another week, and Spears. Doubtful is Zamir White and Madison, both running backs for the Raiders. I don't think either are going to play. I think you're going to see Amir Abdullah and potentially Dylan Lobb. Neither of those are starters this week. Questionable, we have Swift, Allen, Thielen, Neighbors, and Evans. Now, of those cats, I think Swift plays because he's afraid of Rashawn Johnson taking all his love. I think Allen may or may not play. He picked up a new ankle injury on Friday. That's truly questionable. Thielen, he's been activated for over a week now. He'll probably play. Neighbors, it's a new injury, and the Giants, I don't know that they want to chance that. He may not play. And then Evans, I think he's ready to go. Okay, limited this week was Justice Hill for the concussion. He'll probably play, although he's not startable. McConkey, Hurst, Lockett, Cooks, and Fant. And then we didn't have two guys practice on Friday. That's Bateman and Coker. I think Bateman probably plays, but Coker picked up a new injury. He might not. Now back in the lineup, we have Kittle, Jacobs, Downs, CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Laporta's back, Slayton, Theo Johnson, Darnold, Brooks, and Hurts. Now there's still a lot of uncertainty going into game day. So if you want the latest and greatest, check out my X feed at Established Dominance to get the real-time updates. All right, let's start off with the early window and Sunday games. Okay, until someone knocks them off, we're going to start off with the king of the mountain, the Lions. They go hunting in Indy. This game has the second highest over-under for the week in Vegas, which is probably only because the Lions lost Anzalone for the rest of the season, or at least the regular season. But Richardson will struggle in this game mightily, and the Lions should be able to crush Indy in Indianapolis. I say that, and now it's going to be like a tight game. I just jinxed myself. For the Lions, once again, you're going to start every skill player. Laporte is back, so Brock Wright is droppable at this point. For the Colts, however, they're only going to have moderate success against the Lions. Za'Darius Smith is going to get even more playing time. I expect Richardson to have like a mediocre day. He'll probably vulture 1 or 2 touchdowns from Taylor and the rest of his wide receivers in the red zone if they get there. He'll probably turn over the ball a couple times and get sacked a couple times. Downs is his number one target, so he's a startable player here, along with, of course, JT. Pierce is also touchdown-dependent play if you're desperate. Pittman is a risky play. He gets limited love from Richardson, but lately it's been getting a little bit better. Bottom line, you're tempering your expectations for this unit overall and hoping they all get touchdowns, which they won't. All right, in the Vikings-Bears game, this game has the lowest over-under for the week for good reason. It's Darnold versus Caleb Williams. All right, that should be enough. It's going to be a defensive battle with several turnovers on each side and probably a pick six, probably for each team. There's that potential. Now, Darnold, he's been pathetic, even though the Vikings have won 3 in a row, mostly attributable to their defense, which they will need again to win this game. JJ and Addison should have decent starts with hopefully a touchdown. They're getting like 8 to 9 targets each game, which is good. TJ, unfortunately, he saw a low amount of targets last week. He could have success against the Bears if Darnold can actually find him. He's a decent start, but he's touchdown dependent. And the biggest question for the Vikes is in the running game. Aaron Jones, he seems to be playing at less than 100% lately, but luckily Akers isn't really any better. The coaches seem to be creating like a 60-40 timeshare here, and it hurts both of their output. Add in the fact that Darnold is so incapable that the coaching staff scripts quarterback runs at the goal line for him to get a touchdown just to keep his morale up. So you've got a huge problem here. I don't feel confident starting either one of these guys. Both of them need a touchdown to save your day. But I realize at this point, if you've got Aaron Jones, you probably don't have any others. Now for the Bears, Williams needs to play better than he did last week against Green Bay. The Vikings defense is a top 10 unit, forcing lots of turnovers and creating sack opportunities. Caleb will have to use his feet this week to be successful. I could easily see him rushing in a touchdown and vulturing Swift. Now, while we're on the subject of Swift, he's questionable going into this game. I truly think that he does play only because he's afraid of Rashawn Johnson taking his starting role. Now, the coaching staff appears to be giving Rashawn Johnson a lot more time in the red zone and more of a timeshare overall in the game. That's an issue. Again, the fact that he's questionable due to injury, and I can't recommend starting Swift this week. Grab Johnson if he's still on the waiver wire, because if Swift ends up sitting out on game day, or you find out late tonight on Saturday that he's out, then Johnson gets 15 to 20 touches easy. As for the wide receivers, any one of them you start on Chicago is touchdown dependent. Allen's questionable with that new injury. He may not play. And if he doesn't play, then Odunze and DJ Moore become more popular plays. I don't think it really opens up anything more for Kmet. Just to keep it real, he just doesn't get enough looks. Overall, it's too difficult to determine who's going to get the most targets on this team. Avoid it if you can, especially against this Vikings defense. All right, in the Pats-Dolphins game, the first meeting between these two teams was without Tua, and it was a low-scoring snooze fest. Now, Miami is moderately healthy, and they're playing at home, so that's a good thing for them. Still, I wouldn't count New England out, though. May is playing instead of Brissett, and he's much better. I expect May to push for at least 2 touchdowns, 1 on the ground, 1 in the air, and around 250 total yards, which includes about 30 to 50 on the ground. Stevenson is a solid start here as always. He had a nice day in the last game with a touchdown. For the wideouts, May tends to spread the ball around more, but Bourne showed up last week. I don't know if he can do it again, but, if you're fighting for a playoff spot, it's worth the risk. The only real consistent catching threat on the team is Hunter Henry, who's a must-start while he leads the team in targets. Douglas is also a risky play here, but he seems to be one of May's go-tos, and he can be started in a pinch. Now, the Dolphins seem to be starting to gel lately. Tyreek's getting more looks from Tua in the red zone, which is a positive sign. A-Chain is still the no-brainer start, with Mostert as a decent play as well. New England gives up a ton of yardage on the ground. I expect the Dolphins to run a similar playbook to the last meeting to control the ground game, and that makes both of those running backs playable. Tua is a much better quarterback than Huntley. He profiles for 1 to 2 touchdowns and around 200 passing yards, even against an underrated New England secondary. Jonnu Smith has become one of Tua's new BFFs. He's a must-start here, but that leaves Waddle holding the bag, whom I would seriously consider benching if you have better options. All right, in the Bucs-Giants game, obviously the big news this week is the demotion and departure of Daniel Jones and the surprising promotion of DeVito to starter. There are all kinds of red flags in this game for the Giants besides Jones' release. Neighbors is nursing a new injury on Friday, and while he wants to play, he is legitimately questionable. It's a meaningless game with no hopes of the playoffs for the Giants. I would hope that the coaching staff wouldn't play Neighbors if he's not 100%. Why would you risk your best player? Although, let's be honest, the coaches haven't exactly been stellar for New York, and in fact, the only thing they've done right lately is elevate Tracy to the starter, and he should have a strong day in this contest. Fire him up with confidence. The rest of the starters on this team are all a dart throw. I'll say this, quarterbacks who are new or young or rarely get the opportunity like DeVito, they need to lean on guys that they can count on and underneath routes or dump offs. So obviously this profiles well for Tracy, but I'm also talking about tight ends here. Theo Johnson is healthy. He usually gets about 4 to 6 targets. He's a really good catcher. I think DeVito ends up dumping him a lot of balls. I think he's worth a dart throw this week, but I don't think DeVito is worth a start. The Bucs, however, still have something to play for and are entering this game as a must-win to stay in the hunt for their division. They're getting healthier. They'll most likely get Evans back for this contest, who is a must-start unless they change their mind. This will take some targets away from Otten in the red zone, but he is still a premium play and should be in your lineups. Now on the ground, Irving is now the new in-between-the-tackles kind of guy, while White gets all the PPR catches. Both are startable here, but you have to hope that Irving gets a touchdown to break 10 points PPR. On a sentimental note, Shepard returns home to New York. He may get some extra red zone looks to help him with his ego, and it's a decent bye-week dart play here in a pseudo-homecoming. Now finally, Mayfield should be a strong start with Evans back. He'll push for 2 to 3 touchdowns, 250 yards passing. Although the Giants do have a good pass rush, and they'll get sacks. Vegas has this game with an over-under of only 41.5, implying the Bucs only score around 24 points given their 6-point advantage. So there's only about 2 to 3 touchdowns to go around. One more note about this game. The Bucs are starting to get healthier on defense, and their number one cornerback is poised to play either this week or next week after being out several weeks due to injury. If you take a look at the Bucs schedule during the fantasy playoffs, they have one of the easiest schedules out there for the next 6 weeks even. If they can get healthy, they could be the difference in the playoffs for you and win you a championship. Most likely, because they've been banged up, they're on the waiver wire. So if you've got the bench space, go get them now. You'll thank me later. Okay, in the Cowboys-Commanders game, the Cowboys roll into DC almost 11-point underdogs against one of the hottest teams in the NFL. I can't remember the last time I saw the Cowboys as 11-point underdogs. One positive sign they have going for him is Cooper Rush. He's not afraid to throw the ball. He threw for more than 50 attempts last week. He's probably going to get that opportunity this time. But the Commanders' defense is decent against the pass. He may not have as much success like he did last week, but they're going to get behind and he's still going to have to throw. The Commanders, however, are not as strong against the run. And that actually profiles Rico Dowdle to have a decent game as long as the Cowboys don't get behind too quickly. I still think there's a chance that Cooper Rush comes out firing to both CeeDee Lamb and Shoemaker because Ferguson's out, and they both get double-digit targets regardless of the success of Dowdle or how the scoreboard's working in their favor. All four of the Cowboys starters are decent plays this week, most of them being touchdown dependent, but I anticipate the Commanders to put up some points, and the Cowboys are going to have to answer. Now, on the flip side, the Commanders are coming off their loss to the Eagles, but they're healthy. Daniels was surprisingly inefficient last week, and he's going to have a tough time getting the ball to both McLaurin and Noah Brown this week. Ertz, however, has a chance to be relevant in this game and produce a decent PPR game, potentially leading the whole team in targets, except for maybe Eckler. Now, the running game for Washington should have the most success. I expect Robinson and Eckler to have strong games and push for touchdowns each, unless Daniels vultures one or both of them in the red zone, which is possible if he's having trouble getting the ball out to his wide receivers with the pressure he's going to be facing from Micah Parsons. And of course, Diggs is strong in coverage. Don't be surprised if Daniels has another down week like he did last week, and he allows his running back to do the majority of the work against the Cowboys. Similar numbers to what he had against the Eagles last week would be disappointing. In the Chiefs-Panthers game, the Chiefs are coming off their first loss and going on the road to Carolina to face a team that has no chance of making the playoffs. The Chiefs are healthy, and they're facing a defense that normally surrenders a lot on the ground. Mahomes has shied away from the deep ball all season, and he's going to continue to pepper Kelsey and Gray underneath. Both are good starts this week, although they're probably touchdown dependent. Hunt has the chance to have a much better week, and he's a decent bet for a touchdown. Last week, surprisingly, Worthy was targeted and successful after basically being ghosted for 7 weeks straight. I'm not sure I would start him here. I think last week was a little bit of a fluke, but he has great talent, and I've said that all year. But what he hasn't shown is consistency. Finally, this game has a chance to get out of control where the Chiefs sit their starters late in the third quarter or early in the fourth quarter, which means you could see reduced production from Mahomes, Hunt, and company. So keep that in mind if you have better options. Mahomes should push for 1 to 2 touchdowns, probably 1 on the ground, and 200 passing. Now, the Panthers are 11-point underdogs. They're having health issues as well. Wide receivers Thielen and Coker are questionable. Thielen, I think he'll play. Coker, I'm not sure he will. And of course, Bryce Young, he's a hot mess. The coaching staff has also said that rookie Jonathan Brooks will finally get his first playing time of the season. That's exciting. This kid completely blew out his knee in college, and this will be his first game in almost a year. Now, I know you've probably been holding on to him, hoping for a miracle, but this is not the start you're looking for. The Chiefs are really good against the run, and this just really doesn't profile as a good opportunity for Brooks. Hubbard should see about 50 to 20 touches still, unless the game gets completely out of hand, in which case it's very possible they bring in Jonathan Brooks to see what he can do. In the Titans-Texans game, the Titans are another team with nothing left to play for, except maybe the first overall pick in the draft. And they'll start Will Levis again, even after his terrible outing last week. Levis is probably only good for about 200 yards passing and maybe another lucky touchdown, but this time he will probably get it on the ground and vulture Pollard. Speaking of Pollard, Tajay Spears is out, which means Pollard should see 15 to 20 touches, unless, of course, the game gets out of hand early like it did last week. I think Ridley will lead in targets, but there's no guarantee that he'll get the yardage and the touchdown you're hoping for. Ikine looks awesome after his 98-yard touchdown from last week, and he can find the end zone. But again, he's a touchdown-dependent kind of guy. But he knows how to find the end zone 5 out of the 6 last games. So, I mean, if you've got him, he's worth a dart throw. For the Texans, I'm legitimately concerned about C.J. Stroud. I'm not sure he's startable anymore. I worry that the coaching staff sees his weaknesses and the fact that Mixon is running the ball so well that they'll just continue to feed him. Stroud missed a wide-open Nico Collins for a touchdown last week and finished with a goose egg in that column. The Titans aren't an easy out, but they're not that tough either. I expect CJ to have a little bit more success and push for 250 yards and a touchdown. Mixon, He's obviously a premium start and a good bet for a touchdown, if not more. Nico Collins is the alpha. Hopefully, he'll start seeing double-digit targets again, and Stroud will be able to hit him. Dell is also a startable candidate in this game, as well as Schultz, although he's probably only going to see 4 to 6 targets. In the late window, we'll start off with the Broncos and the Steelers. Bo Nix will look to continue to throw the ball and should have a decent success against the Raiders. Coming off last week's 4-touchdown performance, I could see Nix getting 3 touchdowns, 2 in the air, probably 1 on the ground. The Raiders will most likely have difficulty defending passes to Javonte Williams, and he profiles as a decent PPR play this week after the shenanigans of who will be starting at running back from last week. I'm not buying their games anymore. Javonte Williams is the only starter I see for now until there's consistency in the backfield. Sutton should continue to be the target hog. He's a decent bet for a touchdown this week. Vele also has a good chance, and he's getting a decent target share, but whoever gets the second touchdown, that's really up in the air. Most likely, it'll be one of the tight ends. Now, I honestly feel bad for the Raiders this week. Minshew is going to attempt some more Minshew magic, but the Denver defense is shutdown status now. They crushed Kansas City last week. Myers normally gets a decent timeshare of targets, with Bowers, of course, and both should be started, but Myers will most likely see Pat Surtain in coverage and struggle. Zamir White-Madison, both doubtful. I don't think they play. Like I said before, Amir Abdullah and Dylan Lobb, they're going to carry the load, but they're up against a top 5 run defense. Neither of those guys are startable. The only real true starter on this team is Bowers, and he's obviously going to be in your lineups. All right, in the 49ers-Packers game, these teams are going in opposite directions in health. San Francisco already lost Purdy. He's out for the game, and they're going to start Allen, who hasn't started since 2021. Kittle and Samuel are both healthy, although Samuel always seems to be playing banged up. But Allen severely limits both of their upsides, relegates them to almost bench status. You're going to play him, but you're going to be disappointed. All the receiving options on this team get downgrades here, but you probably don't have other bench players that can come in and produce more than this group, even if they play mediocre. So you're probably going to have to play them. Just temper your expectations. Now, CMC, he's a great play as always. He'll most likely have a decent PPR day and see plenty of dump-offs. He's a confident start here. On the other hand, Green Bay is healthy, and Nick Bosa is out on the defensive side of the ball. So Jordan Love should have a good chance at getting 200 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. Reed and Watson are the premium wide receiver plays this week. They should get decent yards, potentially a touchdown each, although lately their target totals have been very low. Josh Jacobs is healthy. He should see a solid 15 to 20 touches. Even without Bosa, San Francisco should still bring pressure, and Love won't just have a cakewalk of a day, even if they're at home. But again, this is a must-win for Green Bay if they're going to keep pace with Detroit and Minnesota. In the Cardinals-Seahawks game, here's a divisional matchup with huge implications. A win by Arizona will give them more breathing room versus the Rams and potentially put Seattle out of a playoff spot. Kyler Murray, he should have decent success throwing against the Seahawks, and McBride is going to be huge in this game as Seattle gives up large chunks of yardage to tight ends. I would expect McBride to lead in targets and yards. Harrison's a good start here as well as Connor. All skill players should have a decent day for Arizona and should be started with confidence. For Seattle, they're healthy, and Geno Smith is coming off a big win against the Niners, even though he didn't throw for a touchdown in that game, so keep that in mind. He may not be the best start this week. His new favorite target appears to be JSN, who should dominate in targets and yardage. He'll probably have a touchdown. Metcalf still sees a high target share and is a good start in this game, but if you have better options for Tyler Lockett, who is questionable, you should probably keep him on the bench. Walker, he's a no-brainer start, and he should push for about 15 to 20 points PPR. For Sunday Night Football, Eagles versus the Rams. This game has one of the highest over-unders in Vegas at 49 and should have some fireworks. The Eagles do have some health issues with Devonta Smith out, but I expect Hurts to have another strong day, especially when you combine his throwing with his rushing potential. A.J. Brown should dominate targets. He's a good bet for a touchdown, while the remaining targets lost to Smith will most likely go to Goddard or maybe even the running backs. Barkley is, of course, a premium play here. He's probably a lock for a touchdown this week. On the other side of the ball, the Rams are healthy. Expect Stafford to continue to push the ball into Nakua and Kupp, and profiles for another big week, maybe 3 touchdowns, 300 yards passing. Kyron Williams, he should still have a strong week, but hopefully he won't get his touchdown vultured again. Kyron, always a great player, should have another good week. The rest of the skill players on the team, though, should be avoided for now. All right, finally, we've got Monday Night Football, Ravens, Chargers. Everyone's going to watch this game. The Ravens are coming in after their shocking loss last week, and they should have relative success moving the ball. Jackson is an obvious start here, as well as Henry. Flowers should continue to dominate targets and is a quality start, even though the Chargers are pretty stout defensively, especially at home. Likely he's healthy, and he's up against Andrews. I'm not sure who's going to get, the majority of the looks here. Likely had a nice game last week. I suspect that they're both touchdown dependent. You'd still want to start both if you had either one of them on your team. On the flip side, the Chargers are up against a defense that is strong against the run, but gives up plenty through the air. Recently, the Chargers have turned more to Herbert to throw the ball versus the ground pound game, which has resulted in McConkey becoming an absolute nightmare for defenses. He's a little bit banged up this week. I expect him to start, probably push for double-digit targets. Once again, I'll say it, Quentin Johnston, he may not get a lot of targets, but he can find the end zone. He's a must-start based on the fact that he just can't stop scoring touchdowns. Dissly continues to get 6 to 8 targets per game. He's a quality start at tight end. The real question is, how will the Chargers handle the run game? Dobbins is a starter. He gets the larger share of touches, but Edwards continues to take some of those touches away. Both of them will struggle against a stout Ravens defense, but they'll have a chance at a short yardage touchdown in the red zone as long as Herbert doesn't vulture it from them. There you have it. It's the Week 12 preview. A lot of key guys are hurt this week. You're going to have some tough decisions to make. I hope this helps. Remember, check for team updates 90 minutes prior to the games. You can use my XV to establish dominance for real-time updates as well. Remember to use your flex positions to give you a chance to sub out in the event of some kind of weird injury or out designation. And like I always say, if there's any question in your mind, just go with your gut. Now, before we sign off, I want to give a shout out to our men and women in uniform who protect the freedoms we hold dear. Thank you for your service and sacrifice. And finally, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and follow us on X, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts so you can stay up to date on our latest content. And until then, remember, established dominance isn't just a catchphrase. It's a commitment. Are you ready?